Okay, welcome back. SLS asks, where is the TDA in this time period? Is this another Skynet project in seasons 3 and 4? That's not required because there's no John Connor. That is a Skynet threat. Well, that's kind of a complicated thing. Not that complicated, but okay, my reasoning with the TDEs, the time displacement engines, equipment, whatever. After Josh et al. Had totally bollocksed up the causality loops with all of the time travel, I had to come to a decision. A primary decision was that there could be no more traveling to the past, because if I travel to the past, that undoes everything we did in the future and makes it invalid. So then what would be the point of telling any story in the future? So that meant there was no time travel to the past. There could be travel potentially to other futures, but never back to the past. So John was never, ever, ever going to go back to 2009. So I kind of made it my credo. There is no time displacement equipment from now on. But that's not exactly true, is it? There's Catherine Weaver. She clearly knows how to create TDEs since she's done it. And then there's always the mystery of what the hell happened to Danny Dyson. I sent him off with his mom to places unknown. This is not canon, but in my mind, Danny and Teresa survived the war and got to live peace until they died at a nice old age and without having to deal with Skynet at all. I let them off the hook totally. But had I needed it for some reason, I could have always brought Danny back, and I always had Catherine to create a TDE if I needed it. But from my perspective, no, there was no more time travel. Skynet didn't have Danny Dyson to help it create the TDE in this timeline, and so they didn't have it. That's why they were so confused as to how this John could be the same John that was in the reports back in the past. Okay, a typograph asks, what are the chances when a writer has a head-splatted spare body for a character and yet gets exactly this character head-splatted? Yeah, I mean, Cameron does. For example, Cameron has a spare body lying about. Its jaw's kind of mangled, but it's slowly repairing itself over time. So what would have happened had Cameron gotten head-splatted? Well, since that would have been the end of Cameron's CPU, unless Catherine made a backup someplace, that would be the end of Cameron. And then what would you do with that endo? You would have just melted it down and made a new one, basically. Hezi asks, can you give us more details about Judgment Day and about Skynet's creation, origins, and rise to power? Ooh, that's a big one. Skynet was created via causality loop. The base was the Japanese computer that won the computer competition, the chess competition back in season 1. Attached to that was the CPU from a T888. So that was the basis, that was the foundation that they worked on, upon which Skynet was built. It was built from the foundation of a chess computer, but got an AI head start via the 888 chip. They didn't rush Skynet's development. Because of Skynet's history, they decided to take it slower and kind of let Skynet come into its own instead of going online all at once. Another aspect of this was the move from Topanga to Excelsior Mountain. Just as the fan change with John Henry caused a slight change in personality, so too did this move caused some changes within Skynet. Skynet had never before been in Excelsior Mountain. It had probably been in Topanga. That's why it was so important about Topanga, or someplace similar. Silly me, I had to put him into an incredibly dense mountain fortress that makes Cheyenne Mountain look like a 7-Eleven robbery in comparison to a bank heist. So the move changed Skynet a bit, but it also delayed Skynet going online because they had to reassemble all of the equipment and confirm that everything was working before it could go online with everything. Skynet did not necessarily have to be hooked into the nuclear grid. It probably was in some aspects. Judgment Day was largely brought about through the HKs that Allison's father, Michael Young, and his team, which included Nancy, they're the ones who developed this technology. They formed the start of the Greys, in fact. Not Michael Young, he died in Judgment Day. And it was the HKs that were actually destabilizing the world because they were so sexy. Nobody could really defeat them, and they could do great destruction autonomously. You could just send them and they would do it, and they were flexible enough that they could alter the game plan if the situation changed. They didn't need constant monitoring. And nobody else had them, and the U.S. wasn't sharing. And ultimately, it's my belief that the HKs were the cause of Judgment Day, that they made somebody so nervous, say North Korea or Iran or Pakistan or any place like that, that they would launch nuclear missiles, or that an HK would be such a threat to a nuclear facility that they would try anything in order to defeat this threat. And that just started the whole ball rolling. It's sort of a war games scenario where no matter who starts it, eventually it becomes global. And time for yet another video change for more questions. So I'll see you on the next video.